Green out of the shotgun by himself there. He's going to take it. Makes a man miss. It's first down and more. Carter Green into the open, powering his way, nearing the end zone. Touchdown. And he finishes it with a 24-yard touchdown. Spectacular run. The spin move gets him into the end zone.
What a heck of a run.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
Welcome back to another edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger coming to you from Seton Hill University, and we have an action-packed show once again here on the Ledger. We'll run down all of the scores from Week 5 around Westmoreland County, as well as the top performers, the always popular plays of the week. A couple of great interviews this week. The Penn-Trafford head coach, John Ruane, who just got a milestone victory.
Happy 100, huh?
Yeah, he is one of the most accomplished coaches currently in the WPIAL. And our player of the week, Mount Pleasant senior Aaron Alakson, who had an impressive performance in the Vikings victory. We'll also look ahead at some very significant contests upcoming this weekend with the Week 6 preview. Before we get into all that, however, Flick, I want to talk about some of the biggest stories from this past Friday's games, and I think the biggest one to me is that there's only one unbeaten team remaining now in Westmoreland County. That's the Belle Vernon area Leopards. They improved to 5-0. Courtesy of their win 56-14 against Laurel Highlands. There was a lot of hype surrounding the game, Devin Whitlock versus Rodney Gallagher, but in the end it was kind of an unheralded player who stole the spotlight. Jake Jetico, who is filling in for Quentin Martin, a coming out party for him.
That just goes to show how deep the Belle Vernon program is, right? We talked earlier and many times on this show about building a program. When you know you actually have a program, Belle Vernon has had a good one for a long time, and when you can replace someone like Quentin Martin with Jake Jetico, who goes 23 carries, over 200 yards, and 5 touchdowns in a game that had a lot of hype coming into it. And he's only a sophomore, Sean. That's going to go a long way because now you know that, if Quentin doesn't feel good next week, the week after, now you can go to Jake and feel pretty comfortable doing so.
Yeah, and he made some big plays after Quentin went down against Thomas Jefferson to get that victory. The scary thing for the rest of the WPIAL is that both Jetico and Quentin Martin are sophomores. So it's not just this year, it'll be the next 2 years. The one question I have is how do you kind of spread the ball around to all of these players now when everyone's back? Because it looks like Quentin Martin will be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. First of all, we saw that he tweeted out after the game against Thomas Jefferson that it wasn't serious, and then he tweeted out that he maybe could have played last week, but the coaches wanted to keep him out just in case. So when he's back, it is going to be tough to spread the ball around, but I feel like those guys are pretty selfless. They just want to get wins, and when you have a kid like that come in again for Quentin Martin, you know that you can count on him. So even if you're bringing back Quentin and he's not 100% at some point, you know that you can take some of the load off of his shoulders by using Jake Jetico now. Just an incredibly impressive performance. And Sean, we've seen Belle Vernon a couple times this year. Jake had a great game, but you got to give it up that offensive line. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but I know that they were blowing some big holes open for him just because we've seen them in the past.
Yeah, the victory against Laurel Highlands was significant because the Mustangs were also undefeated coming in. They have a heralded player in Rodney Gallagher, one of the best juniors in the entire country. So I think that Belle Vernon area put everyone on notice. There was no letdown, certainly, for the Leopards. They are now 5-0, and as I mentioned, they are the only undefeated team remaining in Westmoreland County. That's because the other two teams who had been perfect both lost last week, that being Kiski area and Ligonier Valley, and it really was completely contrasting games for those teams. Kiski area had one that came down to the final seconds as they fell to North Hills 14-10. That was a game that the Cavaliers led until about a minute remaining as the Indians had a long drive to ultimately get the winning touchdown. So Kiski area now 5-1. Unfortunately for them, 0-1 where it really counts in the conference. Sam Albert has a team that seems very comfortable in low-scoring games. They play some great defense. They tried to punch it in on a 4th down and goal late in that contest to go up by 2 scores. Were unable to do so. It gave a long field to North Hills, and the one time that the defense maybe has not been up to the test all season is the Cavaliers could not get the stop. That's a tough way to lose their first game.
Yeah, it really is. And as you mentioned, Sean, they've played a lot of close games this year, low-scoring games. Their defense has really come up with plays when they needed to. Just weren't able to do that in that game. And you love to see the fourth down call by Sam Elbert, just couldn't quite execute it.
On the other side, it was not particularly competitive for Ligonier Valley, a team that's been ravaged by injuries. They found a way to still get to 5-0, but they are now sitting at 5-1. They lost in lopsided fashion 40-0 against Steel Valley. That's a really good Ironman team that was looking for a little bit of payback after the Rams edged one out a year ago. So now 0-1 in the conference for Ligonier Valley, and you figure, okay, they have some ones that will be pretty winnable later in the season. They're going to have a really tough test again this week against Sarah Catholic. But to me, the biggest concern is the long-term outlook for some of the players that they've lost due to injury. Hayden Siraki's still out, and it seemed like they really missed him. And then a couple other guys like Ryan Harbert and Miles Higgins might not be coming back. Can this team ultimately still contend without them?
That's the toughest part. The injuries certainly, I think, when you look back at that game, obviously Burt ran wild over Ligonier Valley, but even the head coach, at the end of the game for Still Valley, Ray Brazo, said, we know they're without a few guys. We know how good their quarterback is, talking about Hayden Siraki and how he makes the team go. Being a smaller school like that, a Class 2A school, if a North Allegheny, a Penn-Trafford is missing a couple of guys, maybe it's not a big deal. But when a smaller school is missing some important guys like Ligonier Valley it is a big deal. And Hayden Siraki helps make that offense and that team go for Ligonier Valley. He's still going to be out for a couple of more weeks, and that's a shame because he was having a really good season. And I believe Ligonier Valley threw 4 interceptions in that game. So, there you go. You can't do that against a Still Valley team with a running back like Burt either when he gets the ball.
Well, and I read a stat in the Latrobe Bulletin that kind of blew my mind. This was the first time that Ligonier Valley trailed in a game all season.
How about that?
So they've not had to throw the ball out of necessity. Now, obviously, they were able to do that early in the season with Hayden Siraki. But this was a situation where they had to try to throw because you're not going to come back 3-4 touchdowns just by running the ball. And they did run the ball well. Nick Beidel had a nice game.
He did. He was a workhorse in that game, too. You give him credit, man, because they're down. Burt's running all over the place, and he was really their offense last week.
So it comes down to, can they stick around and stay within striking distance? If they get down multiple scores until Siraki gets back, it's going to be awfully tough for them. And again, they'll have another stiff test upcoming this week as they go against another undefeated team. Lastly, for the biggest takeaways, one that you witnessed firsthand, Dan, it was unfortunately not a good showing for Greensburg-Salem. You had mentioned one of the biggest games that they've had in quite a while. They did not pass the test on the road against Hampton. The Talbots looked awfully good, 45-6 in favor of Hampton over Greensburg-Salem. It snaps a 4-game winning streak for the Golden Lions. They're still sitting at 4-2, which is good. They have a winning record in conference, which is good, but I think this pretty much brings an end to their hopes of winning a conference title, and now you wonder how will they stack up against some of the other better teams in the conference as well.
Yeah, and how will they rebound from a loss like that? I think Greensburg-Salem still has talent, but man, when it boils down to it, they just could not stop the run. That was the biggest part of that game. Hampton did whatever they wanted to on the ground, and they didn't just do it against Greensburg-Salem. They did it the week before against Highlands as well, and I'm sure Hampton's going to do it to some other teams too because they're really good up front. They had a pulling guard left, pulling guard right, and they had a lot of lead blockers out in front of their running backs last week, and Greensburg-Salem just couldn't fight off those blocks and make tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and Hampton just wore out the Golden Lions. And when you look at Greensburg-Salem on the offensive side of the ball, they didn't have a great game either. I didn't think Hayden Tesco was bad, Sean, but he had some drops, which obviously is not on him. He had some drops. He wasn't at his sharpest. And then there was also a play early in the game. Now, would this have turned the game around? I don't know. But the Golden Lions were losing 7-0, and on a third down, they hit a big pass play, I think, of 40 yards down to around the 10-yard line of Hampton, and it got called back because of holding. And then at that point, they ended up having to punt. Hampton scores on that ensuing drive. Would it have mattered if Greensburg-Salem scored on that drive? I don't know. They lost 33-7. They could not stop the run. 45-6, but they could not stop the run. So I don't know if it would have mattered or not, but that was a kind of a big play early in the game. But, I think Greensburg-Salem still has talent. And I'm interested to see how they'll bounce back. Yeah, and you mentioned it wasn't a prolific game by any means for Hayden Tesca. Still threw for about 160 yards, but he's been putting up 250, 300 yards, so he was held low, well below what his season average has been. And you mentioned, well, they didn't stop the run very well. They're going to get a real test in terms of their secondary this week as they go against an Armstrong team with a quarterback who I think is in many ways similar to Hayden Tesca. So it could be a shootout. And again, the biggest question will be, can the Golden Lions
rebound. That's it for the biggest takeaways from Week 5, but when we come back here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, we'll run down all of the scores around Westmoreland County from the past week. We'll also look at the top performers. And later on tonight, we'll have the always popular plays of the week, as well as interviews with John Ruane of Penn-Trafford and Aaron Alakson of Mount Pleasant area, as well as a look ahead to Week 6 of the regular season. That's all coming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Hi, I'm Anthony D'Annunzio from D'Annunzio's Restaurants. Come visit us at one of our 3 locations, Jeanette, Monroeville, or Latrobe. We're open 7 days a week, so we've always got something cooking at D'Annunzio's. For our dine-in specials, Monday it's spaghetti. It's raviolis on Tuesday, lasagna on Wednesday, and on Thursday it's chicken parmesan or chicken romano. Visit us online at D'Annunzio'sRestaurant.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. D'Annunzio's Restaurants. It's a family tradition.
You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville and Bowser Chevrolet Chippewa. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. With the new Chevy vehicles arriving weekly, reserve yours now at Bowser Chevrolet. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Sean and Dan talking high school football around Westmoreland County. We have a lot more to get to, including plays of the week, interviews with John Ruane and Aaron Alakson, as well as the preview for the upcoming week's games. But let's take a look back at all of the scores around Westmoreland County from Week 5, as well as the top performers. We mentioned Hampton defeating Greensburg-Salem 45-6. If you want to, you can go back and watch that video broadcast, although if you're a Golden Lions fan, you might want to fast forward through a lot of that one.
And we had 2 former Golden Lions on the broadcast.
It didn't help.
It didn't help.
It did not help.
No, it did not.
Well, TJ DeStefano, Greensburg-Salem might not want to claim him.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Oh,
TJ.
You know he's watching right now,
yes,
too, so he's
yes,
coming after you after that comment.
Another game that we had a video broadcast of, Southmoreland 41, Derry area nothing. We'll get to one of the big stories about this game a little bit later. Yeah. But I read an article of saying Derry area took some real strides, and it's tough because you see the score and you're like, well, they're not doing any better. But if you're Vince Skillings, you have to try to find some positives, and he thought that even though they didn't score, they had some sustained drives. He thought they played better defense, which I think is probably accurate because we've seen them give up 60 points a few times, so holding Southmoreland to 41. That being said, it's awfully tough for the Trojans. And on the other side, for Southmoreland, I think a game that they sorely needed after a disappointing one last week.
Yeah, and I don't know that they played their best in that game either. I mean, the game was somewhat close, I guess, until Southmoreland ran away with it late in the game. Ahmad Ward did not play for Derry.
Yeah,
probably at least one of their top players for sure. So we'll see if he comes back this week. I think Derry has certainly a chance to be competitive against Valley, certainly this Friday.
Yeah, that will be another Westmoreland County showdown. You can go back and watch that game. You can also go back and watch Leechburg defeating Jeanette 53-7 in favor of the Blue Devils. They have had a very prolific offense, and that's a final score that was a little misleading because Jeanette battled for most of that first half. That game really turned late in the first half and then particularly in the second half as the Blue Devils kind of ran away with that one, and they get their first ever win at McKee Stadium. So good for them and for their head coach Walters, who's a Westmoreland County guy with many of his stops over the years. No one's feeling bad about beating the Jayhawks, I'm sure. No,
not this year. And the one neat thing that I've seen on social media, Sean, a lot of the community understands what they're going through. It's not as if they're saying, oh my gosh, you guys stink or something like that. No, they're saying like, hey, we're rooting for you, we're behind you no matter what, because they know what these kids are going through with losing all of the transfers.
Yeah, and all these kids playing varsity snaps for the first time. Yeah, it's really, they're growing up right now, and you hope again long term it will be a positive. Other games that we had broadcast on WSN last week, Baldwin defeats Norwin 21-10. That's a tough one for the Knights. They are now 2-4, but they dropped what appeared to be certainly a very winnable game in the conference. Head coach Tim Sweeney gets his first win of the season for the Highlanders. Penn-Trafford defeats Woodland Hills 27-6. the Warriors get their first win in conference play. They are now 1-0. We mentioned it's win number 100 for Coach Ruane. We'll hear from him in a little bit. On the other side, Woodland Hills just 1-5. That's still a really solid Wolverines team. But Penn-Trafford, I think the most important thing, Flick, they need to round into form, be playing their best for this upcoming week.
Yeah, and they were able to really control the game. I know you were there, Sean. I mean, that's what it looked like to me, right? They were kind of in control for the majority of it.
About halfway through the second quarter, they took over, and then the entire second half, it just felt like the Wolverines weren't going to be able to do anything against their defense.
They need to be going in the right direction. They need to win the way that they want to win the week before they play Gateway, and I think PT was able to do that against a Woodland Hills team that I know you had a chance to see them. Maybe you can say if I'm wrong or right on this, but maybe they haven't been as good this year as in past years. They're not loaded necessarily, but I think they're maybe better than their 1-5 record.
Yeah,
they've played some good teams.
Their losses, they had a 1-point loss to McKeesport area. They had a 1-point loss to Penn Hills. They were in a 2-score game against Moon, who many people think is the best team in all of 5A. Right. They lost the game via forfeit because of COVID, and they actually had a short week of practice coming back from it to go against Penn-Trafford. The crazy thing is, we talked so much about Deontay Williams. We saw him last year, great quarterback. He took 0 snaps at quarterback.
Yeah, what was up with that?
They went with Pringle at quarterback instead. They moved Williams to mostly receiver, got him in the backfield a little bit, but it's something that you'll hear from Coach Ruane. He did not expect that, but ultimately they were able to adjust on the fly pretty well. So the Warriors get their first win in what was the conference opener in the 5A Big East. The same could be said about Franklin Regional as they win convincingly 36-0 against Connellsville. The Falcons 0-6. Franklin Regional snaps a 4-game skid. You can go back and listen to that one as well. Cannon-McMillan 45, Hempfield area 27 as the Spartans fall to 2-4 overall. And they are struggling certainly against some of the better teams in Class 6A. We mentioned it before, North Hills sneaks past Kiski area 14-10. 4-2 now for the Indians, and the Cavs suffer their first loss of 2021. Gateway 53, Greater Latrobe 7. That's a Gators team that's also maybe rounding into form. And Jason Maruco said that they just really could not stop the Gateway offense. And Brad Birch is awfully good, but the players around him make it a lot easier for him just to get the football out quickly, and then they can do the rest. That's a pretty good Gateway team, and I'm really looking forward to Friday night.
Yeah, really. When you combine Brad Birch with the talent that Gateway has on the outside, it's so hard to stop them. I was thinking, hoping maybe that the Latrobe Gateway game would be a little closer this year, but that didn't happen. And of course, Latrobe still, using Borio as opposed.
Yeah,
to
they did not have Drake Clayton in that game.
Did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, that was a
Clayton
big loss
out too. Yeah.
Their only score came on a kickoff return by Kyle Brewer, who has been incredible this season. He missed a game a week ago, but was back. And even though they didn't get an offensive touchdown, Brewer still finds a way.
Why do I feel like over the years, Latrobe has had a ton of kickoff returns?
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
who's their special teams guy?
I think
Coach Broco better give him a raise.
Zach Williams did it a few years ago, and he's now at Seton Hill. And then there was another, was it Stevens, I think, after that. Yeah. So they've always had guys that seem to take kickoffs to the house, and unfortunately for them, it was not nearly enough against the Gators. We mentioned Bell Vernon 56-14 over Laurel Highlands, handing the Mustangs their first loss. Bell Vernon at 5-0. Remember, they did not play a Week 0 game, but they are the only team left standing in Westmoreland County in terms of unblemished records. Mount Pleasant 27, York 12. I was a little surprised at that score, that the Cougars were competitive. They made a change at quarterback, and I think it paid off. They put Tristan Waldeer back there. He had been a quarterback the last 2 years. The offense was struggling mightily. It seemed like he gave them a little bit of a spark, and then, quite frankly, holding Mount Pleasant to 27 points, that's a good job for the Cougars as well, that right now are just trying to take baby steps.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Alakson got his yards, but you're right. I mean, holding the Vikings to 27 points, and it was a tougher game than what I thought it would be. Waldeer moving to quarterback, they needed to do something to try to spark them, and they played a little better for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he was wishing that he was able to throw to his older brother, who's since moved on.
Yes.
But yeah, Tristan is always...
CJ, yeah.
Yep, at Edinburgh, by the way. Yeah, he just came to Seton Hill. But yeah, we've always known how good the Waldeers are. It's just a matter of staying healthy and then the team around them. But certainly good to see Tristan having some success at quarterback once again. North Catholic 56, Burrell nothing. The Buccaneers winless on the season as they go to 0-6. As do the Valley Vikings. They fall to Freeport area 33-6. So both those teams looking to get off the schneid. Ligonier Valley, as we mentioned, taste defeat for the first time. Steel Valley 40, and the Rams nothing. The Ironmen now 5-0, Ligonier Valley 5-1. Greensburg Central Catholic with an impressive win against Springdale as the Centurions prevail 35-0. They now move to 4-2 overall. Springdale sits at 3-3. Now, admittedly, there were some key absences for the Dynamos. Their starting quarterback was out. Maybe their best offensive player was also out. But for the Centurions and Marco Thomas, they took care of business there. And you still wonder, okay, how good are they? They're probably not Clairton level. We saw they just came up short against Bishop Canevin. But ultimately, this is a team that I think is in the discussion for playoffs in Class 1A.
Yeah, I mean, Greensburg Central Catholic can't feel bad for beating a team that was without some of their top players. I mean, as media, we can kind of analyze it and say, if those players played, what the score would have been. But, hey, they did not, and they did what they were supposed to do, the Centurions did, in that win, even though looking at the final score was still a little surprising, the way that they handled them. But, again, that's huge. That's huge for Greensburg Central Catholic to bounce back from a loss to Bishop Canevin the way that they did. And we'll be talking about our player of the week a little bit later on, Aaron Alakson. But one of our candidates, Sean, this week was Danny DeLugos, who had a huge day on both sides of the ball, ran for over 100 yards, and then on defense had 15 tackles plus a forced fumble. So I know the guys are really excited about his performance, and Marco Thomas talking with him a little bit after the game.
Yeah, and congratulations for Marco. I think he just had a child. It was the day of the game, and he was.
You know what's really funny about that? I have to tell this story because I was reminding all of the coaches on Sunday night to send WSN their stats. That way we can have them in. We can consider their student athletes, their players, for player of the week.
Right.
Because sometimes we don't see those defensive stats. Are a little harder to find. So I reminded all the coaches, hey, make sure you're sending us your stats so we can consider all of your players for our player of the week. And Marco texted me back and said, hey, I'll make sure that our stat guy sends them to you. He's like, I'm a little busy right now. I just had a kid. I just had a baby. And I said, oh, that's right, you did. Shortly after. Was it on Friday?
I think it was Friday morning.
Friday morning, and then he coached the game Friday night.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was a little bit busy.
Big day for him.
But thank you, Marco, for getting us your stats.
Lastly, in the WPAL high school action around Westmoreland County, Mapletown 15, Monessen 8. That snaps a 3-game winning streak for the Greyhounds, but good to see again that they are playing some really competitive football in Class 1A. Also had a couple of college games in Westmoreland County, or involving Westmoreland County teams. Well, I guess technically they both were in Westmoreland County. Either way, Edinburgh 17, Seton Hill 7. That's a tough one for the Griffins. You can go back and watch that one. A game where they had a chance late to tie it up, a blocked field goal taken back for a touchdown, and now it looks like the Griffins might be on maybe their fourth quarterback of the season. So they've had some struggles at the most important position, even though the defense has been lights out.
Dan Day told me at the beginning of the year that if they could have good quarterback play, they could have a winning season. I don't think they've had that yet. I think if they had good quarterback play, potentially they could have 2 more wins than they do right now. They could have beat Edinburgh. I think they could have beaten Kutztown. But the bottom line is they haven't had that solid quarterback play. They went to their, as you mentioned, their 4th-string quarterback in the loss. And I thought he gave them a spark in the second half, Sean, but ultimately that blocked field goal certainly came back to hurt Seton Hill. As a matter of fact, Luke Hogger from Mount Pleasant had 2 field goals blocked in the game. The one returned for a touchdown that ultimately was the dagger. Yep,
and you mentioned quarterback play, a struggle. I don't think there was many issues with the quarterbacks when St. Vincent College won 42-40 against Case Western Reserve. That was an offensive fireworks show. And in a big one for the Bearcats, they're now 3-1. Case Western Reserve goes to 2-3. So congratulations to Coach Smetanka. Looks like that program is really turning a corner.
Big fan of Coach Smetanka. Congratulations to him. Yep.
That's it for all of the scores. Let's now look at the top performers from Week 5. Again, it's the top passer in the entire district, as well as the top rusher and receiver, and then any notable Westmoreland County performers as well. Top passer from South Fayette, Landon Lutz. He goes 28 of 39 for 339 yards to lead the WPIAL. South Fayette quarterbacks are everywhere. I mentioned that big score. Case Western Reserve's quarterback, a former South Fayette alum who threw for like 475 yards or something, Drew Saxton. So you play at South Fayette, you're probably going to put up some big passing numbers. That's exactly what Lutz did to lead the entire district this past week. Amongst Westmoreland County performers, Luke Lewandowski of Norwin, 15 of 24 for 185 yards in the loss. Jake Phillips of Hempfield area, 15 of 28 for 176. Hayden Teska, we talked about him for Greensburg-Salem, 161 yards, throwing at 12 of 29. Logan Johnson for Kiski area, 11 of 20 in the narrow loss for the Cavaliers for 157 yards. And the aforementioned Tristan Waldeer of the Yacht Cougars completed nearly half of his passes, 14 of 30 for 139. The top rusher around the WPIAL, Najee Burt of Steel Valley, as the standout for the Ironmen, rushes for 277 yards, knocking off Ligonier Valley. And he earned the praise of Roger Beidle in the process. Behind him, and not that far behind, Jake Jedico for Bell Vernon area. He gets the start, makes the most of it, 247 yards on the ground. Quarterback Carter Green of Penn-Trafford rushes. He's not passing. He's rushing for 205 yards in the victory against the Wolverines. Devin Whitlock doing what he does each and every week as the Bell Vernon area Leopard, rushes for 154 yards. Just 1 yard behind him, Aaron Alakson. We'll hear from him a little bit later as the Vikings senior goes for 153 on the ground. And surprising to see this name, Eli Benekonski for Hempfield area, 123 yards. He had not been playing running back. It had been Geno Caesar, and he had been getting a ton of carries. I'm not sure if they just wanted to ease his burden or if there was an injury or they just wanted to try to find a spark, but Benekonski, the former Jeanette Jayhawk, made his mark.
I thought he was an offensive lineman last year, maybe a tight end for Roy Hall. He had been playing some tight end this year. Can't remember.
Yep.
Okay.
He's really good as a linebacker.
He is. Oh, defensively is where he makes his money, man. I mean, he's a great linebacker, and you look at wrestling, great wrestler. But I was surprised. I think I saw a highlight on Twitter. I was like, Eli Benekonski, wow, look at him take off. So,
I would think he's a power runner.
Yeah, I would think so. But hey, why not? Throw him back there, see what happens.
Yeah, good job for Benekonski going for 123 to round out the top rushers. And the top receiver, a South Fayette player once again. It's actually the running back, Nate Deems. 7 receptions, 168 yards. There was no one to crack 100 yards, however, in Westmoreland County. That'll do it for the Week 5 scores and top performers. We'll take a break, but when we continue right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, we will bring to you the plays of the week. That's upcoming as we roll along right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
This is how far we'll go to treat heart, lung, and vascular disease. 15 millimeters. At Excella Health, we believe less can be more. That's why we use minimally invasive surgery in the treatment of coronary artery disease, heart valve repair and replacement, lung cancer, and conditions of the peripheral arteries. For our patients, that means less blood loss, less post-operative pain, and a faster recovery. It means that a disease process that took decades to develop can, in a few hours, be reversed. And for us, it means providing the most advanced and sophisticated care for patients in our region. The Heart, Lung, and Vascular Institute at Excella Health. Expert care here.
At Sendell Mitsubishi, buying your new vehicle is as easy as stop, shop, and roll. Stop wasting time in the dealership. Shop online in just a few easy steps. Roll on home in your new Mitsubishi or have it delivered to your door. SendellMitsubishi.com. At Sendell Volkswagen, buying your new vehicle is as easy as stop, shop, and roll. Stop wasting time in the dealership. Shop online in just a few easy steps. Roll on home in your new Volkswagen or have it delivered to your door. SendellVolkswagen.com.
And welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in each and every Wednesday. Sean and Dan on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, coming to you from Seton Hill University. And I'm not going to ask you if you're ready. I know you're ready, but Flick, do you want to do the honors for what time it is?
Oh, I thought I meant I get to read all of them.
No.
Okay.
You just introduce the segment.
I haven't gotten to that level yet.
Not quite.
It is time for Plays of the Week.
Plays of the Week. It's a abbreviated version of Plays of the Week from this past week. We will begin with history with Southmoreland. As the Scotties' victory against Derry area, it was not in doubt in the fourth quarter, but the game's final touchdown was the most significant, as Southmoreland junior Lily Wassman became the first girl to score a touchdown in the history of WPIAL football. John Flickinger and Bob Lazinski detail that special moment.
You got Govern there to block and Phillips to block. And, she gets drilled, but she get in. Yes, Chance White made the big stick. Then it's a touchdown. Lily Wasman. And how about that? Bounces right back up. And gets a big up from the always exciting and intense Coach Dave Kiefer.
How awesome was that? And she got hit hard, man.
Yeah.
I think the play before, Sean, she got hit pretty hard, and then they gave it to her again.
Yeah, and your brother was saying she wants the ball again. Give it to her again.
How cool is that? And he said, I don't know if it was on, I don't think we got it on the video, but he was telling me after the game, he said Dave Kiefer went nuts on the sidelines, whenever she got in. And you know he would, so that was pretty cool. And by the way, we're trying to get Lily for an interview, so we'll see if we can do that here coming up later this week.
And she's a junior, so it might not be her last touchdown.
She's also a soccer player, by the way.
Yep, no
and that
surprise.
Westmoreland soccer team's very good.
Yeah, and they just had a big victory against York, right? Yeah, so congratulations to her. Now, again, this is based on all the records that we've seen. We don't, I'm assuming if you go back 50 or 100 years, you're not going to uncover another girl scoring a touchdown. Seen a lot of field goals, extra points, but this was certainly a special moment for the Scotties.
I think Casey Ungst could have done it for Penn-Trafford if she had the opportunity.
And she was tough. She was kicking from quite a distance at times as well. Well, we continue plays of the week with Franklin Regional as the Panthers, they snapped their losing skid by defeating Connellsville area, and quarterback Connor Donnelly was a big factor in that. Facing a fourth down in the third quarter, Donnelly surged into the end zone on a 16-yard run that put FR ahead 29-0, as beautifully articulated by Jonathan Whaley.
All right, here we go. 4th and 6 from the 16. FR going for it. Quinn's near side. Sing receiver far. And they fake the run. He's going to run it himself. He's inside the 5 and will go into the end zone. Touchdown. That looked to be Donnelly with the touchdown. So Donnelly takes it in for the 16-yard touchdown run by Connor Donnelly here in this third quarter. 3 FR touchdowns in a row.
JW, the man, as always, calling that run, and sort of a theme, fourth down, quarterback keeper for a touchdown. We'll get to the other one in a little bit, but I think that maybe Connor Donnelly has won that job for the time being. They were using a rotation. I think ultimately they were able to finally settle on him, and looks like maybe he might be the guy for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. He put up some pretty nice numbers. One passing touchdown, a couple of rushing touchdowns against Connellsville. So build his confidence up even more, and now, of course, we'll be facing some really good teams down the stretch.
Yeah, it's not going to get any easier. That's probably the one game where you could say Franklin Regional's definitely going to win in the conference, and now it's going to be some real tests upcoming for them, but having a confident quarterback can only help their cause. And I said it was a recurring theme because you'll hear with Penn-Trafford something very similar. The Warriors, they were leading Woodland Hills late in the second quarter, but they faced a fourth down as well. It was short to go. Coach John Ruane kept the offense on the field, and their quarterback, Carter Green, did the rest, putting the Warriors in command at 17-6. Myself, Sean Meyers, and Roger Downs paint the picture. But they keep the offense out. Fourth and short. Green out of the shotgun by himself there. Going to take it. Makes a man miss. It's first down and more. Carter Green into the open, powering his way, nearing the end zone. Touchdown. And he finishes it with a 24-yard touchdown. Spectacular run. The spin move gets him into the end zone.
What a heck of a run from Carter Green. Given some limp legs there. Little shake and bake into the end zone. We talked about it earlier in the pregame, Sean. His toughness certainly on full display there.
He eluded two defenders and then spinning, powered his way in against the third and final would-be tackler. He is a tough runner. He hits hard from the secondary. He's not very big, but you would not know it watching Carter Green play, and that's probably a good reason as to why he's going to continue his career in a pretty physical sport of lacrosse right here at Seton Hill.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing him play in his college career, and they have one of the best programs in Division II, but he still has a lot to accomplish, I'm sure, this year for Penn-Trafford. And, man, again, we've talked about the issues in the passing game, but he is such a tough kid. You got to root for him every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, 100% every play for Carter Green. While talking about Penn-Trafford, we'll take a break, but when we come back, I had the chance to talk to John Ruane, the longtime head coach for the Warriors, who just celebrated win number 100 in his career. And I don't know if you know this or not, Going against Gateway is a little special to him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I know.
Okay.
I'm breaking the news here.
Ask him that question, okay? Make sure you do.
I will do that. So when we continue, John Ruane, the head coach of the Warriors, sits down and talks with me right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
The Chamber of Commerce for Westmoreland County is one of the largest chambers of commerce in the Commonwealth. We work on workforce development. We work on the county's comprehensive plan, economic development, transportation, and building businesses that affect our community.
Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce, building business, connecting communities, and empowering everyone.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers now joined by John Ruane, the head coach of the Penn-Trafford Warriors. A big matchup against the Gateway Gators upcoming this week, but first let's take a look back at this past week, a victory against Woodland Hills. And Coach, I know you have to be pretty happy to go on the road to a hostile environment and go to 1-0 in conference play. What stood out about the victory against the Wolverines?
Yeah, it was a good win. I thought that the best part about the way we played was we were pretty physical on both sides of the ball. I thought our defense got after them a little bit and kind of set the tone early in the lead, but after that I felt like we kind of bared down a little bit. I thought our offense was physical. We ran the ball well. Still absolutely killing ourselves with penalties, though. I don't know how many we had, probably 5 or 6 holds and false starts, which are just terrible. That's something we cannot do against Gateway because you just can't be behind the sticks. But overall, I was happy with our physical style of play.
And I was really impressed by your team's response after Woodland Hills took what turned out to be a very brief lead in the second quarter. You came back on the ensuing drive, and I think it took less than 2 minutes to restore the lead in your favor. How good was that to see that response from your players?
Yeah, I thought we had a really good response. You know, they kind of maybe woke us up a little bit with that drive, and, you know, we hadn't been playing too well in the first quarter. Again, we eliminated penalties. We got the run downhill. I thought we came off the ball hard, so... for whatever reason, we played good at that point, and then really carried it through the second quarter, I thought.
Carter Green, I think, struggled throwing the football in your 2 losses, but there's no mistake that he is a terrific runner. He is a powerful runner who plays hard, really in all phases of the game, and he came to the forefront with his ability on the ground against Woodland Hills. What did you see from him that stood out?
The urgency. Carter, you know, he understands situations. He's really dynamic in the run game. You know, it didn't call for us to pass very much once we saw what we could do in the run game. I continue to say weekly that I'm confident in this kid and throwing the football. I stand by that. There'll be a time and a place for it. But ultimately, I love the way he got downhill quickly. He really read his blocks well, and you know, he didn't mess around in the secondary. He made one cut and ran, which is what we love to see. So yeah, he had a great game.
It was a little surprising that I think the game plan was to try to slow down Deontay Williams, the very talented quarterback for the Wolverines. To face him as a quarterback, he played mostly receiver, a little bit of running back. It was Jayshon Pringle who took almost all the snaps. Was that something you had anticipated, and how do you make that adjustment on the fly when it's a completely different quarterback and a different style of QB as well?
I'll be honest, no, we did not expect that at all. I mean, I guess it was a good thing for us. We really, we know what kind of athlete Williams is. The other kid was tough in there, but I don't know. I think we didn't make many adjustments. We just kind of went with our game plan. Made sure that our coverage was there. We definitely kept an eye on that guy, Williams, at receiver. Obviously, they'd like to get him the ball. So, but yeah, it was a surprise to us.
We've talked throughout the season, and really the first 5 games you wanted to develop depth and find out what you have in some of these players who maybe didn't have a lot of varsity experience. But last week was the first game that really mattered in terms of it being the conference opener. So how does your coaching approach sort of change now that you're in the second half of the season where all the games count towards the postseason standings?
I mean, I can't say it changed much. we're playing to win every week, conference game or not. Just the little minute details and the reminders that, these really count, and you can't do these things, and, if we lose and we're behind and we can't get a home game and we can't win the conference, and, we try not to harp too much on the negative stuff, but those reminders over there. But ultimately, I'd coach the same against Woodland Hills as I would against Shaler. All the games matter, in my opinion, in high school. You only get 10 of them.
Talking to head coach John Ruane of the Penn-Trafford Warriors. His team sitting at 4-2 overall and 1-0 in the Big East Conference. So you look at the season as a whole, and certainly the names that come to mind, we mentioned Carter Green, but Cade Yacomelli as well.